Hello friends, welcome again to my YouTube channel where I share great ideas and my experiences in doing different things. What I want to share with you today is my experience with multi-axis turning. This fall I was looking at some YouTube videos on that, and I decided I wanted to give it a try. So this is kind of my first experiment with doing type of this, and I want to share you some ideas of how to get started in this. I watched a number of professionals do multi-axis turning. One that I'll mention is Barbara D. She's basically spent her whole turning career just doing multi-axis. But what I find is sometimes watching the professionals is they think it's so simple that they skip a lot of some very basic things. And I want to share today some of the basic things that I've learned. I started out with doing some longer pieces, like let's say this one here, and I ended up with 2 sides rather than the 3, even though I had it set up with 3. I wasn't sure what I was doing at that point. But I've made it into something, believe it or not, just for the fun of it. I bored a hole down and put a glass tube inside. It came through the outside here, but I kind of like that. I think that's neat. So I made a base for it too, so that's good. Here's a little bigger one here. This one ended up actually to be 3-sided with a 120-degree twist, and it has a tube in it too. So this summer I'm going to use those for fresh flower stands or something. It's a kind of a novelty, and it's not can't adapt to a lot of projects, but possibly. And this was an interesting one too. Ended up to be 2 sides, but it has no twist to it. I'm not sure what I'll make with this. It's pretty long, but I'm going to experiment making some shorter things and see what I can come up with that. And some of the other things, like this one here, was after I scaled it down a bit. This is a 3-side 120-degree twist, and I bored it out a little bit. Got these little glass candles. With candles and wood, I think it's a good idea to take the precaution maybe and use something with glass, candles in glass rather than right in the wood, although in most cases it won't generate enough heat if you watch it to catch the wood on fire. Like, for example, here's another one. I did a bunch of these shorter ones, and that's what I'm going to do today. That's got a 120-degree twist, and then it's hollowed, of course, which I did mostly. I'll show how to do that. And then I got this candle from the dollar store which just happens to fit in there. I didn't make it specifically for that. And of course, the hazard of burning candles, these little electronic ones here, I got a bunch of those yesterday, and you could make something with those too. This is kind of a nice one. It's got a program. When you turn it on, it'll shine for 6 hours, and then it stays off for 18 and then comes back on. So, because the first one I got, I just didn't get around to turning it off and bore the battery out. So anyway, this was kind of one of the first ones that I did. I had a longer piece of wood, and it would make a good cup, because that's what Barbara D makes them for, is cups. In fact, I showed some of these to someone, my dental hygienist, and she said, "Oh man, those are fantastic. When you grip them, they hold so nice." She wants 6 of them. So it takes a lot of work though to make one of these things, because you got to lathe it 3 times, and it's fairly not time consuming. It goes quickly, but it does take time. And like, for example, this one here, see, after I experimented a bit, I started making them smaller and smaller in here, and that one grips really nice too. Just a couple other ones making here. This was just totally experiment. I haven't done it. Decided I'd make it same top and bottom and then suck it in quite a bit at the center there. But that could be made into something cool yet. I haven't given up on that. Yeah, so that's about it. Oh yeah, this one here, I didn't show you yet. A lot of the ones that people do are three-sided. But I decided to try, this is my first one. This one's four-sided. There's four sides on that. And it takes a little bit of effort to get it so it's fairly accurate. Because if you don't have each side laid down perfect to the profile, the distances in here will be more or less. They won't be equal. But it looks pretty good from the top. It's just this one's a little narrower, that one's a little narrower, that one's a little wider. Okay, so what do we need to start one of these? Well, you need a piece of wood. I was looking around for a piece of wood and I decided to just go out to the fire pile wood. I burned a lot of firewood, picked up a piece of wood here. So we can take a piece of wood, instead of putting it in the fire, we can make something and drink out of it. Anyway, I'll square that one up and use it, I guess. So anyway, just stand by and I'll show you how to do the layout. The layout, how I've figured out to do it is a little different than some of the professionals have done it, and you'll understand it so much better. Okay, I've got that block squared up out of that piece of firewood. It's kind of questionable, but we'll give it a try anyway. Now the first thing you want to do is find the center, and you know how to do that, corner to corner, and where they cross in the middle is the center. So it's nice to start out with a square piece of wood. But I'd like to tell you, do it a little different than you've done before. The first line you put on is from the corner and just go beyond center, okay? Not all the way across, but just where you estimate's above center. And then when you go corner to corner the other direction, you just put the little cross in there and you've got the center. And where you put this one in, you follow it down to the other side. And here it is here. You start it across here the same way. So you've got it two ends that are basically the same, from the same corner. I've turned it around so it looks on the opposite side, okay? Then the next thing you do is you got the center now. You want to put a circle around the, out from the center, and that you just kind of estimate. And the first time you do it, you'll probably put it out a little bit too far. This is going to determine the offset. And of course, you do that on both ends. There's no rule on how much to do it. Just don't do it too little or too much. Anywhere in between too little and too much is just great. Anyway, so there's your circle, okay? Circle there. Now the next thing is to put a line from the center to the outside 120 degrees apart. Now you can do protractors or various things here. I got this little tool here where it's a protractor with a little ruler on it. And so then I'm just I'll have to do this. I'll just lay that on there. So it's in the center there. And then if you want, you could take, you can see that. And if you want to know where to put that on the other end. So if I just take my pencil and come down there with a line, then I go to the other side. And from that line, I'm going to put another 120 degree angle. So there's my line. There it comes out 120 degrees here. And I turn it around. There's my line. And it comes out to that point there, okay? So almost all of these things will be 120 degrees. If you go to 30 degrees, or I mean, yeah, you have to do 90 degrees. Then there's 90 degrees, and then you go to 30 degrees. 30 into 360 goes, I'm not sure how many times. Anyway, but so rather than getting your compass out all the time, take a little piece of wood or metal or something, draw that little line on there, and then you'll have it already. You won't even have to look at the thing there. Now you have to look at that and determine so then you have those lines like that. Now I could have put the circle on after I did those. In fact, most of the times I did. I just got to where now we have to do the same thing. And that 120, I have to turn this over this time to get that. And it always comes off of that long line that goes to the corner. Okay. There we go. We got the other side done. Now, wasn't that simple? But center and then down one side so you don't get mixed up, and then put your line on, put your 120. That way you know you don't have it cockeyed or whatever. So anyway, then the next thing that I do is you're going to drive, or the live center will go on these outer points. The inner, I use a pointer, see, and just mark those centers. It's a lot easier to do it with a pointed tool than to try to line it up with the lathe. These are things that I've showed you so far. It's not in the professionals' videos, so it's very easy to do once you figure it out and you can get it accurate. Okay, there we got little points on there. Now the reason for that is we're going to use a tool here and prepare that for turning. So just stand by and I'll go get my tool and set up. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is center drill these points that we poked with that pointed tool there. And the reason for the poke marks is so your center drill starts right on the thing there. Now a lot of people don't have these, and there's no reason why you don't. This is called a center drill. It's used in metalwork for basically on the lathe to start your hole. Because you know, if you take a drill and you put it on metal and you try to drill with it, it kind of wanders around. But this is thick and very stiff, and the way the end is, it will drill right on center. Now I use these a lot on woodwork, especially on wood lathe, to start for your live center and dead center and so on and so forth there. So, now you have to determine which is the bottom, which you want to be the bottom and which you want to be the top. We'll do the bottom first. I've determined this because there's a little crack here, and I want the bottom a little smaller than the top, so hopefully it'll work. Now when you do the bottom, don't make them as deep as the top ones. There's a reason for that, which we'll probably figure out later, but just let the tip go in and just start. it might be a good idea to put bottom on there. I've got mixed up a couple times, but anyway. And then where the lathe center is, you want a little more of that taper holding. That looks pretty good. Okay, so that's all done. You can see what that looks like. That's the top and that's the bottom. One's more and one's less. Now, what you have to do is number them. You have to number the holes. Now, I start with the one here where that goes all the way to the edge that I put on first. That was the one that put on first, but you could take any of them, it wouldn't really matter. So I'm going to enable that one number 1. Sometimes I just put like a cross on the line here. I'll do both. I put the 1 and then I put a little nick on that. I don't know if you could see that. It's right here. 1 and 1 little nick. Okay. Now, follow that down to the corner and do the same on this side. We'll label that one 1 and I'll put a thing on there. And then you go one way or the other. I tend to go clockwise, and then I'm going to put 2 little lines there and put a 2 down in here. Okay, and then we'll come around 1, 2, and then we'll put a 3 here and 3 little lines there. Okay, you see those there? Okay, now what's important here, okay, we'll go to the 2. Now I didn't put a line down the side, so maybe that's how it's coming up here. So if I put a line down there, this one here is going to be 2. Don't do one side clockwise, one side the opposite way. You got to have them side to side. So this one's going to be 2, and I'll put a 2 there. And obviously, what's going to be the next one? Or 3. So we'll put 3 things and put a 3 there. Okay, so we got them all marked. Well, before we go to the lathe, I want to show you another little trick or something that I do that I think is kind of cool. I made a circle there, as you can see, because we're going to want to lay this round, so that goes there. So I've got all this wood over here we need to lathe off. Now, you can just put it in the lathe and lathe it off, no problem, but I've never liked the binging and banging around it takes and splintering of wood, so I like to cut those corners off. I've just done it by eye, holding it and on different projects, but then I got to thinking, why don't I make a jig to do that? So this is my jig here. I just took a piece of wood and cut a V-slot in it with this coming out here. This is for larger pieces. I did another one just out of like a 2x4 or something like that for smaller pieces, but and that holds wood in there. So I just put the wood in there, and since I put that line, I'm going to put it where I can see. And then I put a little screw in there to keep it from sliding off. Now, I can use a long piece in here, obviously. So now, when I run that through the bandsaw, it'll hold it there really nice, and it'll cut that corner off. Now, wasn't that slick? If you get nothing out of this video, maybe this little tip here, you can use that for other things. Anyway, I think now I'm ready to go to the lathe.